All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Wrestling Otaku back here on the one and only Wrestling Otaku channel, your personification of excellence on YouTube and YWC. And I'm back here for this late night video. It is now officially Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Hope you all had a good weekend and all that. And so it's, like I said, real late. It's approaching 2 a.m. here, but I figure I'd go ahead and do a little video before I call it a day, call it a night here. Just kind of relaxing, watch some football earlier in the night, watch some anime probably before I go to bed. But so I want to make this video to talk about something that is kind of I've been wanting to do a video about this. I've been contemplating doing a video about this for a while, just because of how big of a topic it is. And this is kind of separate from my usual content. This is going to be something out of the norm for me. Well, I have, done videos in the past where I've given my thoughts on non-wrestling, non-sports related topics and things of that nature. So this is going to fall within that realm. This is kind of going to fall more into the political landscape, things of that nature, which I've done videos of that ilk in the past. And so I want to give my thoughts real quickly on this story that has really been the focal point of the media, and just kind of gives you a grand scope of where things are in this country right now, both politically and just in general. And I'm going to talk real briefly about this whole Charlie Kirk situation, the Charlie Kirk assassination. And this has really just, ever since it happened, has been pretty much, it's all you hear. It's all you hear about in the media. It's all you hear about news sites. It's all you hear about on TV. It's all everybody talks about. That's all you ever hear. You go on social media, it's all people discuss all day for like the last 2 weeks now, 3 weeks now, however long it's been, ever since his assassination. Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk this, Charlie Kirk that. So it's hard not to it's hard not to hear it. I mean, if you're online, if you're on social media, if you watch the news, it's been the main topic of conversation for the last better part of almost a month now. So basically, what happened was this Charlie Kirk individual, which, by the way, I'll just say this right now for the record. I did not know who this was. I did not know who this even was up until a couple weeks ago. Like, I had no clue who this dude was. You guys know me. I'm not big on the political, I don't really follow people in the political landscape that closely. The only time I really pay attention, the only time I really pay attention to politics is when there's like an election, there's an election year, things of that nature. Other than that, I don't really pay close attention to, politics or people who are in the political, realm or stuff like that, so it's not something I follow that closely. So, needless to say, I had no clue who this was, up until recently. So I don't really have a much of a dog in the fight when it comes to speaking on them, but I do want to say a few things, just because I've been hearing so much about this the last several weeks. So apparently, what happened was this Charlie Kirk guy. He is I guess, like, I don't know what his official title is, but apparently he was a political activist, like a big conservative political activist who would go out and he would have these speeches and he would speak to people and he would have debates, I guess, on talk shows and radio and things of that nature. And he would have rallies that he would go to and speak on, or speak during, I should say. And he would go to certain colleges and things of that nature, and he would just basically, I guess, share his opinions, and which obviously is very, very conservative based, very right wing opinions, so on and so forth. Apparently, he was like a close friend or associate of Trump, so that pretty much says all you need to know right there. But yeah. So what happened was this dude was at a rally or some kind of like event at a college in Utah, I believe, and he was speaking. And then all of a sudden, apparently somebody heard, you heard a loud pop go out from the crowd. The dude got shot in the neck, and he obviously there was like a couple thousand people there. They all basically panicked. They all ran over the place. It was a big chaotic. It was chaos. It was a big chaotic moment. And this dude Charlie Kirk ended up dying as a result of his wounds. So So ever since then, this has sparked just a wave of just all sorts of things, controversy, all sorts of things. You have people who are mourning his passing and so on and so forth. People who knew him and obviously family members and so on and so forth. And then you have other people who are basically celebrating celebrating his passing, on social media, like nonstop seemingly. You had people going on social media, you see TikTok videos and people posting various things, basically celebrating all sorts of memes and stuff. And it's like wow, it's, just seeing it. It's just like, because again, I had no clue who this was, so I didn't really understand what the heck was going on. But yeah, so you see, again, people celebrating his passing, and then you see again, the outrage for that, and people. There have been people who have come out and spoken on individuals who are celebrating their so once again it's basically kind of like more fuel to the fire in the whole right versus left, the right versus the left, liberals, conservatives, all that bullshit, all this political stuff. For those of you who know me, I don't really identify with any political ideology. Like, my stance is I just have my own stance basically. I'm not on either side. I'm not picking a side. I don't lean towards any direction. Okay, there are viewpoints on the left I don't agree with. There are viewpoints on the right I don't agree with. That's kind of what my stance is when it comes to things to politics and uh, when it comes to my political viewpoint, shit like that. I don't really involve myself in things of that nature. But I give my takes on certain things. I have again opinions, and like I said, some of them are more so right leaning, some of them more so left leaning. So I guess you could say I'm in the middle. But anyway, so like this whole thing has just kind of spiraled into this big back and forth. People outraged about others celebrating this Charlie Kirk guy's passing and so on and so forth, and now there's a big thing where there are all sorts of individuals who are getting fired and losing their jobs over this. People who have come out and said that they lost their jobs because they publicly celebrated Charlie Kirk's past and stuff like that, and not just regular people either, like, big name figures. There was an author for a DC comic who apparently made statements or something of that nature, basically kind of, celebrating his passing, and then that person ended up getting fired, and one of their comics that they were the author of was basically like called back or was like recalled or some shit like that. And obviously, the biggest name being Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel recently came under fire. He lost his job. He was let go by ABC. They basically canceled his show, and so it's just like a massive wave of just a whole bunch of shit that's happened in the last several weeks, man. And it's just like crazy seeing all this, and so what I like to do is just kind of give my stance just briefly, because again, I had no clue who this was. I don't really know him all that, know anything about him outside of things I've heard the last few weeks. But I'll say this, in terms of his passing, like, it's tragic. Um, nobody should go out in that way, in that manner. You it kind of makes you like, again, like I was saying before, it just kind of makes you question like the direction of this country. Like, you can't even go out and speak publicly without fear of something happening. It's just like that's just the nature of the times we're in this country. But for me personally, I just look at all the individuals who were openly celebrating this guy's passing, and obviously his viewpoints when it comes to like things that he's spoken on in the past, his viewpoints can be viewed as controversial, offensive. Some would say ignorant. Some would say borderline hate speech. I've heard some of the things. I've heard some of the speeches. Some videos in regards to things that he's said in the past. I've done my fair share of research on him, and personally, I don't really, just again, my opinion here, I don't agree with his stance, or the stance that he had towards certain things. I didn't agree with his stance towards minorities. Don't agree with his stance towards LGBT. I don't agree with his stance towards gay rights or women's rights or immigration, things of that nature. I mean, again, this dude just comes off as an ultra. He just had very ultra conservative viewpoints, and I didn't really care for his opinions. I didn't really care for his takes on certain things. That just saying, especially like I remember one clip that I saw where he basically said in so many words that women like Michelle Obama, um, they only got to they only got to the spot that they're at because of affirmative action. You know, because they're not that they weren't smart enough, or they weren't smart. They would have never gotten to where they were without affirmative action, because they're not smart enough to get there on their own, or they're not smart enough to get like a high profile job, or graduate, or get through get through school or college on their own. And I'm thinking to myself, how could you say some shit like that? Um, it's just like I just don't care for the dude's opinions, or his stance on things. But I will say this to all the individuals who are celebrating the guy's passing openly, just like just basically dancing on the guy's grave and making all these memes and such. To me, it's just poor in taste. I do not agree with it. Okay, I don't agree with celebrating anybody's passing. You know, unless we're talking about somebody who's like like a criminal, unless we're talking about somebody who's a mass murderer, who's a rapist, who's a child molester, somebody who goes after children, somebody who's an animal abuser, or somebody who's like a war criminal or dictator, like a Saddam Hussein or Osama bin Laden or somebody like that. Unless it's somebody like that passing, I don't I don't think anybody should be celebrating anybody else's passing, or I don't think anybody should be doing that. Just because you may not agree with his opinion, or you may not agree with his stance on things. I just think that's incredibly poor in taste. It just makes it makes the individuals doing that look very petty and very, very, very weak-minded. It just comes off as poor in taste. It's poor in taste. It's classless, regardless what you think of his political views or whatever. It's like, if the guy is gone, he's gone. He can't defend himself. And for people to do that, it's just like, it's ridiculous. And more than anything, for me personally, more than just the man himself, it's disrespectful to his family, because he leaves behind, obviously, he was married and he has children. I believe he has 2 kids. And obviously, if anybody's affected by this more, if anybody would be like affected by this the most, it would be his immediate family, because now his children have to grow up without a father, and that's a big deal. I've known people, like, I've had family members, distant relatives, cousins, so on and so forth, who lost their father at a young age, and it's like, it's not something you can just like get over or recover from. It's like, a father is a big deal in a child's life. And so now his late wife and his children are going to have to go without their husband and without their father. And it's just like, I see that, and I hear about stuff like that, and it just makes me sad. It's sad. It's tragic. Regardless of what I think of the man and his viewpoints, it's just tragic. And for people to go out and celebrate this man's demise like that, to me, it's like it's a slap in the face to his living family. And I don't think people should be doing that. Like, I just don't. I don't, man. I don't. I think it's incredibly tasteless, it's classless, and people shouldn't be doing it. Plain and simple. They shouldn't be doing it. And the ones who are doing it ought to be ashamed of themselves. They honestly are. They honestly should be. So, you don't have to like the guy, you don't have to, agree with his opinions, but, like, he's not around anymore, and if you don't want to, honor his passing or whatever, you could at the very least, give prayers to his family, to his living family. They didn't do anything to hurt anybody. You know what I mean? So that's basically my stance on that. I just think people should not be going around celebrating this dude's passing, especially in such a way to where he got shot and killed basically in cold blood and assassinated. It's not right. It really isn't. It's not right. Um, and and that, now that I got kind of got that out, that there's another part of this that I kind of wanted to express here. And again, this is all just my perspective or my opinion. I personally think that people, like, I understand, people being outraged of, people celebrating, Charlie Kirk's passing and whatnot. But I kind of think people need to stop glorifying this individual, because, like, I mean, what I mean is, people are acting like this Charlie Kirk guy. They're acting like he's this war hero. They act like he's an American forefather, like he's a savior of humanity, just with the way that they're speaking about him, and it's like, the dude was like, he was a political activist. He went out and did speeches and stuff. Like, not saying that that's not saying that that's not important or whatever, but people are acting like, I mean, there's certain people out there, on the right, who are acting like this guy's the second coming of Jesus Christ, like he died on the cross for our sins, and it's like, it's not that big a deal, so and it's just like one of those things where, I'm not trying to make a light of, what happened to him, but all the same, it's like people just glorifying, just propping him up, putting him on his pedestal like he was like he was the most important man on the planet. It's like, I'm sorry, it's just like, it's tragic what happened to him, but at the same time, it's like we got to move on. It's like there was a early this year, back in June, there was another assassination of a woman, Democratic House of Representatives member. I believe her name was Melissa Huffman. I believe she was in Minnesota or Michigan or one of those Midwestern states, and she got assassinated. Literally, dude came in her fucking house, shot her and her husband dead. And it's like, where's the same energy for her when that happened from people on the right? It's like, come on now, and nobody should be making light of anybody's passing. But at the same time, let's not act like this guy is like, Jesus Christ incarnate. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's getting a little ridiculous. And all this canceling, all this cancel culture stuff it's getting ridiculous. Like, honestly, there are people saying that this is going to be the start of, like, the next civil war and shit. It's like, it's getting ridiculous, man. It's getting ridiculous. Like, things in this country politically are just getting ridiculous. They honestly are. They honestly are. And I really, truly fear for the direction of this country, the way things are headed, dude. This is just a microcosm of how bad it's getting. It really is, man. So to just kind of wrap this up, to kind of summarize, I don't want this to be a long video, but the Charlie Kirk individual, I hope, his soul finds peace. Hope he rests in peace. I wish his family well, his wife and his children. Very tragic what happened to them. Them losing their loved one, their father, husband, so on and so forth. And nobody should be making light of his passing. Nobody should be celebrating that, because that's a disrespect to them, to his living family. Okay? Nobody would want that. You wouldn't like that if something similar to that were to happen to you. So I think people should knock that off already. It's just, it's ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous at this point. But at the same time, I think it's about time that we move forward. It's about time that we kind of move on. It's okay to honor his memory, Charlie Kirk's memory and all that, but let's not act like this guy was like a freaking war hero, like he cured cancer, like he ended world hunger, like he stopped world wars and stuff like that. Can we not glorify him either? I don't. Again, this is kind of, my stance in terms of me just being in the middle. You know, can we stop celebrating his passing, and can we stop also glorifying him at the same time? You know, that's kind of where I stand on that. But yeah, so I'll say this to close this out. You know, I didn't know the individual. I didn't know the man up until a few weeks ago when he was assassinated tragically. But I would say, hope he rests in peace. I hope he finds peace wherever, you know, wherever his soul lies, and I hope his family finds peace. And to all his loved ones, I hope they find peace. And to all the people here, you know, who are making a big deal out of this, it's just a media frenzy out of this. It's like we as people, as a country, as a society, we really need to do better. We really, really need to do better. Honestly. People need to do better. This country needs to do better. The society needs to do better. And until that happens, it's only going to get. It's only going to. I fear again. It's only going to get worse. And I said this before. I'll say it again here. I fear for the direction of this country. I really do. Nothing you can do. There's nothing. I'm just a guy who does YouTube videos. You know, really nothing. There's really nothing that I'm going to say that's really going to change anything. But I'm just giving you guys my opinion, my real thoughts and my opinions. That's what I provide on here. But that's all I got to say for that. So thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment. Give me your thoughts on anything I talked about here. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support you get. With that being said, it's pretty much going to do it, man. So thanks for watching. Till next time, Rest of the Taco. I'm out. See you guys later. Peace.